Hello there, I hope you're safe and you're keeping the necessary guidelines that are set to help us curb the menace and the pandemic of the COVID-19, infamously known as the coronavirus that is sweeping across the globe. And in Kenya, the situation is not any different. Several cases have been confirmed positive, while tens, many more are still under monitoring to know if it's real, the coronavirus thing. And today, we are trying to do things differently, looking into the issues that are going to be affected or how the economy is going to be affected as far as the coronavirus thing is concerned. And a very warm welcome to this special edition of Kazi na Mali. We're going to try and crunch down numbers and look at the statistics and finally tell on what to be done so that to curb the impact of the coronavirus, the COVID-19. And to help us do that, in studio today, I am with Anne Mwaura Martin, famously known as CPA, and Mwaura Martin, a financial consultant who is going to help us in bringing into perspective this whole issue of coronavirus versus the Kenyan economy. Welcome, CPA and Martin Mwaura.
Thank you so much.
Three great names.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
Vincent.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Anne Mwaura Martin, like you said, CPA Anne Mwaura Martin.
The CPA means what? Stands for what in this
It is
perspective?
Certified Public Accountant
Great.
of Kenya. So I am a Certified Public Accountant of Kenya.
Are you keeping safe as far as the guidelines are concerned?
Yes, I am keeping safe. It calls for all of us to keep safe on a daily basis, take the precautionary measures, and make sure that we keep safe to prevent this coronavirus.
And it's evident that we are keeping a meter away as far as the social distancing is concerned. And
Sure.
because we should do this, and the public out there, you should also follow the guidelines. Wash your hands, avoid being close to each other, keeping the social distancing. And these are some of the ways that we're going to use if at all we are going to curb this pandemic. Now, let's talk a little bit about the efforts of the government in trying to contain the COVID-19. How can you rate the efforts of the government of Kenya in this particular moment?
Okay, I must say that I appreciate so far that the government is doing all that it can to make sure that they curb these menace, because it is quite a challenge. We have seen it's indeed a challenge. And the government has tried in putting in measures, things to do with making sure that people sanitize, providing the masks, and even educating people more about the virus and telling people to make sure that they do not travel. This calls for self-quarantine because it is important for all of us Kenyans to keep safe. And therefore, when the government is advising us to keep safe and quarantine ourselves, we need to do that. And I appreciate, Vincent, that the government is doing it and trying to make sure that everyone gets into it. There are repercussions and consequences of this, which probably we will continue talking about in this show. But the government has also invested in the health system. We know that they have called upon nurses, they have given finances to make sure that people are supported to be able to be tested and to be prevented from this menace. They have set aside hospitals and health facilities where people can be able to be taken care of. Yes. So we see the government doing its best in this particular issue. Actually,
again, we should recommend the government because through the Ministry of Health, they're trying to give as much as of information to the public as possible.
Sure.
Through the regular press conferences that they're having, so that they contain the, what we call fake news out there.
Sure.
Yeah, because you look at the statistics that are in the public and those that we see on social media, they really they're on a contrary, but the government is trying to make sure that the information is out there for the public, and it's a commendable thing as far as concerned. Now, let's divulge deep into the issue, the economy of Kenya before coronavirus or before COVID-19, it was kind of faltering. There were issues here and there. How can you talk about the economy of Kenya pre-COVID-19?
Economy of Kenya pre-COVID-19, I would say it was fair. We still had challenges here and there, but it was fair and growing. There were measures being put to make sure that the economy is not so adversely affected. We can look at the issue of corruption. It was affecting the economy even before this epidemic came up. We can look at the issue of piracy and things like that, and I again appreciate the government because of the issue of currency change. We just experienced that the other day, yes. And that also helped the economy to be able to grow and stabilize. We were still not doing very good as far as the economy is concerned, but I would say it was fair. If you look at real estate, it was coming up very well. There are many areas that were coming up. There was still unemployment issues here and there. There was still a few discussion about corruption. We had some political instability here and there. It gets back to the issue of BBI and all that was continuing. Yeah. But we can see it was fair, not down to the trail.
It was not down the trail, but look at the austerity measures that the government was trying to come up with so that they contain the debt rate that was actually going up beyond the ceiling. Look at the way they removed or repealed the interest cap rate that they had. The government, actually the president, had just regulated a year ago, and a year later he capped it and removed it, repealed it for that matter. So it means that our economy was not as stable as much as it was working, but it wasn't stable. Look at the pending bills, then you look at the inflation, look at the debt, as you said, and look at the graft, corruption and all that. So it was an issue. Now, that was pre-COVID-19.
Yes.
Now it is here with us. It is here with us. Yeah. How do you see our economy going forward?
For sure, Vincent, there's a prediction of economy recession, and not only in Kenya but globally, because this is something that was uncalled for. This is something that was not prepared for. This is where even the reserves are used up to try and curb these menace. This is a time where what was kept for, we would call it even a rainy day, has to be used up. Yeah. And therefore it's a time that we are experiencing a recession. Look at inflation, it will definitely go up, and the living standards will be affected. And there are so many issues that are expected to happen because wealth is wiped out. Look at the lockdown on the transportation industry. The airlines have locked, the borders are blocked, and therefore with import and exports affected, it is going to affect the economy globally. And here in Kenya, for example, if we take an example of where this coronavirus was first detected in China, we look at about 20% of our market comes from China. We rely so much on China and other countries. And therefore, we are looking at a scenario where wealth is wiped out. There's going to be inflation. The recession is deepening. We cannot predict when it will end, but as long as and as far as it can be contained, when the government is able to curb and contain the situation, then we can be able to say that this whole issue will be contained. But for now, we need to take precautionary measures because the economy is going to be affected. We look at the global chain. Breakdown is happening already. We look at the global trade. It's also shrinking. So it's such a challenge and a situation where there's going to be challenges and hardship.
Actually, now let's look at the aviation industry in Kenya. The national carrier Kenya Airways was already making losses, big losses for that matter. And now, right now, how do you see the situations going forward? Because we know that several routes have been suspended, and this is a giant that was already on its knees. Is it going to survive the COVID-19, Kenya Airways?
Let me say that it's very affected. The airline, the aviation industry is affected because the borders are closed and the shutdown, it affects their business and all that. We are already hearing rumors of retrenchment and unemployment is going high. When there is no transport, there is no people moving from one country to another or moving business from one country to another, it is going to affect the airline at large. Because remember, Vincent, this trickles down to tourism, and because airline carries a large portfolio, because every other area may be affected. Look at the tourism industry, where we no longer have tourism happening as it was happening before. Look at the bookings that had been done earlier, which have been cancelled. So the airline is going to be affected in a major way, and we can only pray and trust that this epidemic can end in good time or earlier than we expect, so that this can be controlled.
You've talked about the aviation industry. If the effects are there, then the ripple effect is going to be felt across board. Look at the hospitality industry, the hotels, the tourism industry. We know that thankfully right now it's a flat season for the tourism industry. It's not the peak season. So they might try to cope with that. But the president intimated in last presser that you may, in days to come, hear that some of the staff in the hospitality and in the industry sector have been asked to take a half pay, a leave, or even layoffs. So this is going to affect across board. Talk about the transport industry in the country, the matatus and all that. There was a suggestion yesterday that, or the days before, that the transport industry, the matatus, now try to take on board fewer passengers to try and keep that social distancing of a meter away from each other. And these are matatus that are paying loans. How do you see this?
This is quite a challenge, and it's if you listened to the feedback that these matatu people were giving, some of them were saying that this is not sustainable at all unless we take up fewer people into the matatus and the government pays for the extra seats. So as much as we know we are doing it to contain and prevent further spreading of the virus, it's going to be really a challenge, because you look at these matatu owners or even the drivers and the conductors who are in this matatu industry, they understand very well that this is a challenge and it is going to be bad if it continues spreading. But look at their income, look at how they feed their families, look at how they get their day-to-day feeding. It's through that matatu industry, and they will tell you, if you tell us to stay at home, if you tell us not to transport people, then it means we are not eating. So you'd rather take a step and go try, trusting that we will not get the virus, rather than stay at home, because we literally have no money.
Sure. Now let's look at this fact that Kenya actually rides on the wheels of the informal sector. That's the truth. We are not a manufacturing country. We're not really industrialized as other nations. We depend on the informal sector, like the mama mboga, jamaa wa mjengo kule, and all these other guys that go and work and paid on a daily basis. There is a suggestion that people should work from home. Me and you, we are privileged. We might be able to work from home, but mama mboga cannot work from home. Do you see this really going to hit, if it gets worse, if the COVID-19 spread gets worse in the country? How is the informal sector going to be hit? How tough is it going to be?
I will tell you it will be tough, because telling these small businesses, people, the mama boga, mtu wa mkokoteni, to stay at home, it may not help them if we are not giving them handouts, so to call them. We look at the other global countries that are able to support the economy. We look at USA that is even giving allowances to their citizens.
Yeah, to a tune of 100,000.
Yes, 100,000 Kenya shillings
Yeah.
equivalent. We look at the government there supporting the SMEs and giving them money to be able to cater for the salaries of their staffs and supporting their loans and all those kind of things. But when you come here in Kenya and other undeveloped countries, we look at that situation being a challenge because there is no enough money, there is no funding, there is no reserve set aside for such kind of a thing. And now telling this mama boga to stay at home, and this person is the breadwinner, they need to feed their family, they need to even service their loans. You know, these are people who have loans because they are not able to support all their businesses with whatever they have already saved. So it's going to really hit them, and I don't know how sustainable it is making them stay at home unless we introduce other ways of doing business that can sustain them and help them to be able to curb this or be able to overcome this challenge and even be able to feed them. Otherwise, it's going to be a challenge. And also looking at it on the other side, we look at SME being an important sector. Now, even banks are going to the small businesses.
Yes.
We have seen banks going to Gikoba, those small businesses. So we look at the small businesses being an important sector in the economy, where we need to really put our interest on and support, even as a government.
We look at these cases because when we do rounds as journalists out there and try to interact with mwananchi, we look at these simple small businesses like mama kuuza chakula kule, the mama mbogas, jamaa kuchoma mahindi. Right now, they almost going into a halt because nobody's really purchasing these things because they think they're already infected or affected otherwise. So what should the government do to try and contain and maintain the run of the informal sector, because it's actually the biggest wheel of our country economy? Okay.
The government should try and support these people. If we would look at the issue of inflation, for example, it has gone up, and that common mwananchi is not able to cope with the same. So we look at government bringing up or coming up with fiscal measures that can help this common mwananchi to be able to cope with the situation. For example, they have loans. These are people who are not getting cash now that the business has stopped. In a way, people are not purchasing their items like you say, and therefore the government can try and probably increase their loan repayment period, where they were expected to pay within a certain period. This can be extended. Okay, that also comes with a challenge or a risk of having more interest on board, because that's the other thing that Kenyans should know, that as you go for that option, you also need to understand that the longer the period, the higher the interest. So it's not an easy thing that people should run into.
It's not the easiest option.
Yes, they should think about it, plan for it in advance, but it is one of the things that people can, because we don't expect that this epidemic will be for long. So the government can try and help them in that way. The other thing is on tax relief. We can talk of possibilities where government can control the tax the taxpayers are paying and probably offer reliefs that can also help these businesses to bounce back or to come back. We look at giving them soft loans, benefits of allowances, wherever it can be possible. Another thing that the government can support these SMEs is by investing heavily on the health system, like we had mentioned earlier, because when the government has invested much into it, they are able to protect and prevent the spread of the virus, thus enabling these business owners to attend to their businesses and be able to earn something extra.
Sure, that is a sure thing. You've talked of the physical policies and the monetary policies that the government and the private sector, especially the banking sector, should try to come up with, and to try and actually release some relief on the Kenyan citizen. We are going to look at these policies. Are they going to work? Then again, we are going to look at the exports and imports as far as a nation is concerned, because we depend on imports. 80% of what we use in Kenya as raw materials in our industries or the manufacturing sector is imported. And we also depend on exports. And talking about this, we are going to talk and look at horticultural sector, because it's taken a hit as far as that is concerned, because the major economies in Europe, where we depend on exporting our horticultural products, have been shut down. Remember that you can reach us on our Twitter handle, CACTV_Kenya. On Facebook, it's CACTV Kenya, and you can also stream us live on CACTV YouTube channel. Going for a short break, we'll be back. Do not go away.